I walked into my own bridge room and got treated like a hazard sign. 12 faces went still. Coffee stopped pouring midstream, and the man I'd played next to for 14 years put his hand on my chair, like I was about to bite someone. "Arthur," Gerald said, too loud, like volume could replace courage. "The committee voted. We can't have you here. Not with the language." Language. That was the word they used when they didn't want to say what they'd been told I'd said. Before we continue, this isn't really about cards. It's about what happens when someone decides you're unsafe and everyone else stops asking questions. Subscribe and comment what city you're listening from. I'll show you how paperwork beats a rumor. I'm Arthur, 72, retired civil engineer, 41 years of building things that didn't fall down. Bridges, parking decks, overpasses. The kind of work where you count bolts and you don't assume anything that can be measured. I've also run a bridge club for 15 years. The card kind. The kind where you show up with a pencil, a partner, and a memory sharp enough to remember what you promised last hand. I started that club in the community center basement when the place still smelled like wet paint and bleach. I bought the first 4 tables myself, $312 each, folding legs that pinched your fingers if you weren't careful. I still have the receipts in a manila folder because that's what I do. I keep paper. You don't found something and then forget you founded it. Not if you're wired like me. That afternoon, the room looked the same. Green felt, whiteboards with the last week's scores, the old wall clock that ran 5 minutes fast unless you smacked the side with your knuckles. But the people didn't look the same. They looked like they'd been briefed. I stopped just inside the door. My shoes made a small squeak on the waxed floor. 12 heads turned at once, like a flock. No one smiled. Marianne, who used to bring lemon bars and gossip like they were part of the entry fee, stared at her score sheet like it contained instructions for what to do with an old man accused of something ugly. Gerald stepped in front of my usual table, my usual chair, north seat. I always played north. Habit, superstition, control. "Gerald," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't joke. I just said his name, the way you say it when you're trying to keep the temperature steady. He lifted his palms slightly, not apologetic, defensive, like I was the one who'd come in swinging. "Arthur, don't," he said. "Don't what?" I asked. He glanced behind him, then back at me. And that's when I saw it. The shame in his eyes. Not shame for me. Shame for himself. The look a man gets when he realizes he's about to do something he'll tell himself was necessary. "We talked," he said. "The committee did." "The committee," I repeated, and the word tasted like dust. "You mean the same committee that can't decide whether the snack budget should include decaf?" A couple people flinched. A couple looked away. Small movements, small betrayals. Gerald's jaw tightened. "It's not funny." "I'm not laughing," I said. He nodded once, like he'd rehearsed this. "We can't have you here. Not with the things you've been saying. To people. In public." There it was again. Language. Things. People. Vague words are what cowards use when they don't want to own a sentence. I looked around the room. I knew every face. I knew how they took their coffee. I knew who cheated by counting too long and who always claimed they forgot the convention card. I'd sat at tables with these people through divorces, funerals, knee replacements, grandkid graduations. We'd fought over bids and laughed over misplays. We'd watched each other age in real time. Now they were watching me like I was a hazard they needed to cordon off. "Who told you that?" I asked. Gerald's eyes flicked down, then up. "Jessica did." Of course. My daughter's name landed in the room like a dropped brick. Jessica, 42, marketing director, smooth hair, smooth words, smooth excuses. The kind of person who says, "I'm just being honest," right before she lies to your face. Gerald rushed to fill the silence. She's worried about you, Arthur. She said your mind is going. She said it's not your fault. Not your fault. That's the new way people stab you. With pity. What did she say I did? I asked. Be specific. Marianne finally spoke. Her voice was thin. At the bank, she said. She said you... She stopped. Her mouth opened again. Closed. Like her tongue didn't want to cooperate with the story. Gerald stepped in again. Arthur, we don't need to... Yes, you do, I said. Quiet. Flat. If you're throwing me out, you can say the accusation. Silence. The clock ticked on the wall like it was enjoying itself. Gerald swallowed. She said you used racist slurs at the bank teller, and then at the grocery store, and to the mailman. The mailman. That one almost made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was lazy. Like they'd brainstormed, who's a public servant everyone sees, and landed on mailman. I took a slow breath. In. Out. The air smelled like burnt coffee and that lemon cleaning spray they use on the tables. I didn't argue. Not yet. I did the math. Someone had constructed a narrative, a consistent one. Bank. Grocery. Mailman. 3 locations. 3 incidents. Enough to sound like a pattern. Enough to sound like a decline. Engineers recognize patterns. Fraud investigators do too. I wasn't either by job title anymore, but those instincts don't retire. They sit in the back of your skull and keep score. I stared at Gerald. Last Tuesday, I said. He blinked. What? Last Tuesday, I repeated. Did Jessica tell you I shouted something last Tuesday? His face tightened again. She said you screamed at the mailman last Tuesday, in your driveway. I nodded once. At what time? Gerald looked irritated. Arthur. What time? I asked again. Marianne's eyes darted to Gerald like she wished he'd answer so we could move on. Susan, always the first to forward a scandal, leaned forward like she was watching live theater. Gerald exhaled sharply. She said around noon. Noon. I pictured my Tuesday. I pictured it because I live my life like it's being audited. Always have. Tuesday at noon, I was at my orthopedic follow-up. Hip x-ray. Waiting room with old magazines and a fish tank that hadn't been cleaned in months. I'd sat under a humming fluorescent light and listened to a receptionist argue with someone on speakerphone. I had a stamped appointment card in my wallet. I had a bill in my glove compartment. I had a parking receipt. 30 minutes, $2. Noon. Okay, I said. And you all voted based on that. Gerald's cheeks flushed. Arthur, it's multiple reports. We can't risk... Risk what? I asked. He didn't answer. Because the answer was obvious. Risk having someone accuse them of tolerating racism. Risk being the group that let it happen. Risk being on the wrong side of a rumor in a small town where rumors are currency. Risk. Everybody's brave until their reputation is on the table. Then they fold like cheap cards. I looked at the room again. I noticed details. I always notice details. The new coffee maker on the side counter. Stainless steel. Digital screen. I'd bought it last month because the old one leaked and they kept forgetting to replace it. The felt on table 3 that had started peeling. I'd brought glue 2 weeks ago and fixed it myself while Gerald talked about his golf game. The laminated score sheets in the plastic holder, my printer, my ink, my time, the place I built, and they were telling me I didn't belong in it. Fine, I said. The word came out calm, even, which surprised a few people, judging by the way their shoulders eased like they'd expected a scene. I buttoned my coat, straightened the cuffs. My hands were steady. That mattered. That mattered more than any speech. I will respect the vote, I said. For now. Gerald blinked. Arthur. I held up one finger. Not dramatic, just clear. But understand something, I said. You're not removing me because of what I did. You're removing me because of what you were told. and whoever told you is either mistaken or lying." Mary Ann's mouth tightened. Gerald stared at the floor. "And if you want to know which one it is," I added, "you're going to find out." Nobody spoke. They just watched. I walked back out. My shoes squeaked again. Same floor. Different world. In the hallway, the community center's air was colder. The vending machine buzzed. Somewhere upstairs, someone laughed. Real laughter, not the brittle stuff in the bridge room. I stood by the bulletin board with flyers for yoga classes and bingo nights and a blood drive. My hands went cold anyway. Not because I was sad, because I understood the structure of what had just happened. You don't isolate a man by accident. You do it on purpose. I sat in my car for a full minute before turning the key. The steering wheel was cool under my palms. The dashboard had a fine layer of dust because I hadn't washed it in a month. I'd been busy. Busy being a father to a daughter who apparently decided I was an obstacle. I drove home without music, just the sound of tires on asphalt and my own breathing. At a red light, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the small black notebook I keep. Leather cover, elastic band, a pen clipped to the spine. Some men collect stamps. I collect facts. I wrote, December/?, Bridge Club ban, accusation, racist slurs, plus mind is going. Source, Jessica. Gerald says last Tuesday, noon, mailman. I was at orthopedic follow-up. Then I underlined, source, Jessica. I didn't call her. Not yet. Confrontation is what people do when they want relief. I wanted outcome. When you're dealing with a collapse, you don't start by yelling at the building. You start by shoring up the supports. So I went home, walked into my kitchen, and did the first thing a man does when someone tries to call him incompetent in writing. I opened my file cabinet. Second drawer. Medical, alphabetized, labeled. A ridiculous habit, according to Jessica. Dad, nobody files paper anymore. Yeah, and nobody tells the truth anymore either. Yet here we are. I pulled out my orthopedic folder, appointment cards, notes, imaging reports, every date, every time, every signature. Then I pulled out my general practitioner folder. Then I pulled out the folder labeled legal. Just holding those folders calmed me. Paper doesn't gaslight you. Paper doesn't remember it differently. Paper doesn't change its story depending on who's listening. My phone buzzed on the counter. One vibration, then another. Jessica's name lit up the screen like a warning label. Of course she'd heard already. Small town. Fast mouths. I didn't answer. I watched it ring. Watched it stop. Watched it ring again. I poured coffee instead. Black, bitter, hot enough to sting my tongue. The smell filled the kitchen. Familiar. Honest. My phone buzzed again. This time a text. Dad, are you okay? Gerald called. I'm worried you caused a scene. Please call me. No greeting. No apology. Just scene. Just damage control. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a list on a legal pad. Top of the page. Next moves. 1. Immediate cognitive assessment. Document competency. 2. Update medical power of attorney. 3. Lock down financial access. 4. Identify who received what message from Jessica. 5. Secure proof of coordination if it exists. I stared at the list. The pen hovered in my fingers. This wasn't about feelings, not primarily. This was about control. I'd seen this pattern before in a different life, back when I was still working and contractors would try to slip a change order past the client, hoping nobody tracked the numbers. Step 1. Make the other party look confused. Step 2. Create urgency. Step 3. Offer yourself as the responsible solution. Jessica wasn't clumsy. She was calculated. And if she was telling people my mind was going, it wasn't because she suddenly cared about my mental health. Jessica cares about things that come with a budget line. I stood up and walked to the hallway closet where I keep my coats. On the top shelf, behind winter scarves, was the small lockbox I rarely opened. I pulled it down, set it on the counter, entered the code. Inside were deeds, wills, insurance documents, and the kind of papers you don't look at unless you have to. I opened my will. My eyes went to the part that named Jessica as medical power of attorney, as my healthcare decision-maker if I couldn't speak for myself. I stared at her name on the page. The paper suddenly felt like a trap I'd built for myself years ago, when I still believed daughter meant something automatic. I flipped to the financial section. Jessica had access to nothing directly. I wasn't stupid, but she was a beneficiary, a major one. And my house, my paid-off 2-story house with the maple tree out front and the deck I rebuilt myself, was part of that. If you wanted the house without waiting for me to die the old-fashioned way, you'd need a shortcut. Guardianship, medical incompetence, isolation. I exhaled slowly through my nose. My jaw tightened, and I felt it in my molars. That was the plan. I picked up my phone and did not call Jessica. I called my doctor. The receptionist answered with that cheerful voice they train into people. "Good morning, Dr. Patel's office." "This is Arthur Mitchell," I said. "I need the earliest available cognitive assessment. Full evaluation. Today, if possible." There was a pause. Keyboard clicks. "Mr. Mitchell, are you experiencing—" "I'm experiencing a daughter," I said, "and I'd like paperwork to prove I'm still myself." Another pause. Then her voice lowered slightly, more human. "We can fit you in at 2:30. Dr. Patel can do a preliminary screening, and we can schedule a full neuropsych evaluation." 2:30, I repeated. "I'll be there." "Bring a list of medications," she said. "I have a list," I replied. Typed. Dated. When I hung up, my hands were steadier than they should have been for a man who'd just been publicly accused of something that could ruin his name. But I wasn't built for panic. I was built for containment. I grabbed my coat again, then stopped. On the counter was a photo Jessica gave me 2 Christmases ago, framed. Her and Mark, her husband, standing in front of their new SUV, smiling like they'd invented happiness. The frame was cheap. Faux wood. Probably $12. I stared at Mark's face in that picture. Mark always had that look. Eyes too bright, smile too practiced. The kind of man who talks about opportunities and timelines like life is a sales funnel. He'd failed at 3 jobs in 5 years. Real estate, fitness coaching, some kind of online course business. He called himself an entrepreneur. I called him underemployed. Jessica called him misunderstood. I called him a liability. And now my bridge club had just told me I was the liability. I picked up the frame, turned it over, and looked at the back. Nothing there. No message. No "Love, Jess." Just cardboard and staples. Fitting. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jessica. "Dad, please answer. People are worried. I'm coming by later to check on you." Coming by. Not asking. Informing. I typed one word. Don't. Then I deleted it. Too emotional. Too reactive. Too satisfying for her. I put my phone in my pocket and went out to the garage. In the garage, my tools were where I left them. Wrenches hung on the pegboard. Extension cords coiled. The smell of motor oil and cold concrete. Order. I opened the glove compartment in my car again and pulled out the orthopedic appointment card. Stamped Tuesday, 11:30 a.m. I slid it into my wallet behind my driver's license like a badge. Then I drove. The doctor's office was 30 minutes away. Traffic was light. The sky had that pale winter look, like the sun was tired. At a stop sign, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down just long enough to see another message preview. "Dad, you're scaring me." Scaring. She wanted to be the scared one now, the concerned daughter, the saint. I turned the phone face down and kept driving. At the clinic, The waiting room was warm and smelled like hand sanitizer. A TV played a daytime talk show with the volume low. Someone coughed into their sleeve without covering their mouth properly. I signed in. My handwriting was clean. My signature didn't shake. When the nurse called my name, she smiled like she knew me. "Arthur Mitchell?" I stood, walked in, my gait still stiff from the hip surgery, but steady. No cane today. I made sure of that. The nurse took my blood pressure. "A little elevated," she said. "Funny how that happens when your daughter tells the town you're losing your mind," I replied. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she gave a small sympathetic hum, like she'd heard 100 variations of family trouble. Dr. Patel came in 10 minutes later. Middle-aged man with kind eyes and a clipped, efficient way of moving. "Arthur," he said, shaking my hand. "What's going on?" I didn't give him a speech. I gave him a summary. "Someone is claiming cognitive decline," I said. "They are also claiming inappropriate racial language in public. It's false. I need documentation. Time-stamped." His expression sharpened. "Who is someone?" "My daughter," I said. He sat down. "Okay. Tell me why you think this is happening." "Assets," I said. One word. "Control. Guardianship." He held my gaze for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Understood. Let's do an assessment." He ran me through questions. Date, season, location, a list of 3 words to remember, counting backward, drawing a clock face, naming animals. I answered without hesitation. He watched me closely, not judging, measuring. When he asked me to remember the 3 words again, I repeated them exactly. He made notes, typed, stopped typing, looked up. "Arthur," he said, "you're performing within normal range for your age. No signs here of cognitive impairment. But for legal purposes, a full neuropsych evaluation is stronger." "I want it," I said. He nodded. "We'll refer you, and I'll write a letter today stating you completed a cognitive screening with no red flags, and I'll include the date and time. Include that I requested it voluntarily," I added. "Not prompted by family." He gave a tight smile. "You've done this before." "Not in medicine," I said. "In life." He printed the letter while I sat there, listening to the printer whir and click like it was building a shield, 1 page at a time. When he handed it to me, it felt heavier than paper should. Because it wasn't paper. It was leverage. I folded it carefully, put it in a folder. Then I asked for one more thing. "Copy of my medication list," I said. "Updated." The nurse printed it. I thanked her. I walked out. In the parking lot, the air was colder than the clinic. The wind cut across the pavement. I stood by my car and opened the folder just to look at the letter again. Date, time, doctor's name, clinic letterhead, facts. I got in my car and drove to the next stop, my lawyer. Not because I wanted to sue anyone. Not yet. Because when someone starts laying groundwork for guardianship, you don't wait and see. You lock the door before the burglar finishes checking the windows. My lawyer's office sat in a brick building downtown, with a brass plaque and a door that stuck unless you pulled hard. Inside, the air smelled like old carpet and toner, a familiar smell, a smell of documents and consequences. Linda Harrow had handled my will for years. Practical woman, silver hair, no nonsense. The kind of lawyer who doesn't waste time comforting you when you're there to prevent a disaster. Her assistant recognized me immediately. "Mr. Mitchell, Miss Harrow can see you in 5 minutes." I sat in the waiting chair and watched a young couple whisper to each other over a stack of papers. They looked nervous, like they still believed adulthood was negotiable. My phone buzzed again. Jessica. I ignored it. When Linda called me in, I stood and walked into her office. "Arthur," she said, "you look like a man who's here to change something important." "I am," I replied, and I handed her the doctor's letter. She read it. Her mouth tightened slightly. Dementia accusation? And racism, I said. She looked up. That's a combination. It's a strategy, I said. She leaned back in her chair. Who's pushing it? My daughter, I said. Linda didn't gasp. She didn't say, oh my. She just nodded once, like she'd been expecting it. Okay, she said. We update your medical power of attorney immediately. We also review your financial documents. We make sure no one can claim you're vulnerable without challenge. I want Jessica removed, I said. From everything. Medical, legal, any decision-making. Linda's pen moved across a pad. Who replaces her? My brother, I said. Tom. Still alive? She asked, dry. Stubbornly, I replied. Linda's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Good. We'll draft it today. She opened a drawer and pulled out forms, the sound of paper sliding against paper. Arthur, she said, I'm going to ask a hard question. Has your daughter ever had access to your accounts or passwords? No, I said. Then I paused. She has my old family cloud login from years ago. Photos, shared calendar, that kind of thing. Linda's eyes narrowed. Change it. I will, I said. And Arthur, she added, if she's telling people you've used racial slurs, she may be trying to provoke you into an angry outburst. Don't give her one. I won't, I said. My hands tightened around the armrests of the chair, not trembling, just pressure, controlled. I was thrown out of my own bridge club, I said. I didn't raise my voice. Linda nodded. Good. Then keep doing what you're doing. Document. Record. Stay calm. I stared at the law books behind her desk, rows of them, heavy, quiet, unimpressed by emotion. Calm is a weapon, I said. Linda's eyes met mine. Yes, she replied. It is? She slid a document toward me. Sign here, initial here. I signed, initialed, dated. My pen strokes were firm, and as I wrote the date, a thought settled in my head like a bolt tightening into place. Jessica didn't just want me embarrassed. She wanted me discredited, because a discredited man is easy to manage. A man with paperwork is not. My phone buzzed again on the desk. Linda glanced at it, then back at me. I picked it up and looked at the screen. Jessica calling. Again. I declined the call and set the phone down, face up, like I wanted it to see me refuse. Linda didn't comment. She just kept sliding papers toward me. When I left her office, I had a folder thicker than when I came in. New documents, fresh signatures, updated authority, a small fortress made of ink. Outside, the sun had dipped lower. The air smelled like exhaust and cold stone. I sat in my car and allowed myself one short, private moment. Not grief, not sadness, just a quiet acknowledgement. My daughter is trying to bury me while I'm still breathing. Then I started the engine. On the drive home, I made the next decision. I wasn't going to talk it out. I wasn't going to clear up misunderstandings. I was going to trace the lie the way you trace a crack in concrete, back to the first point of failure. Because lies spread in patterns, and patterns leave footprints. At home, I walked in and went straight to my desk. On the desk was my old iPad, the one we used years ago for family photos and shared albums. It still sat in a charging cradle. Screen dark. Quiet. I picked it up. The screen lit. No password prompt. That was odd. I tapped the mail icon. It opened. Then I tapped the Cloud Photos app. It opened too. Jessica had set this up years ago and told me, Dad, it's easier if everything stays synced. Easier? For who? I opened settings. I checked the account. Still logged in. Not my name. Jessica's. I stared at it for a long second. The way you stare at a door you didn't realize was unlocked. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smirk. I just felt the cold, practical part of my mind click awake. Because if Jessica was careless enough to leave her account on my device, there was a chance. just a chance, she'd left more than photos behind. And if there was one thing I knew about people who think they're smarter than you, it's this. They always get sloppy. They always assume you won't look. I set the iPad down, opened a notebook, and wrote. Check device sync, messages, email, notes, anything. Then I opened the Messages app, and the screen loaded. A list of conversations, names, dates, little previews of sentences. My stomach didn't drop. I don't do dramatic drops. My hands just went colder, and my breathing got slower. Because there it was. A thread between Jessica and Mark. And the last preview line on the screen read, If the Bridge Club bans him, he loses his support network. Judge will see instability. I tapped the thread. I didn't read it all at once. That's a rookie mistake. You rush, you miss structure. I scrolled slowly, line by line. Date stamps, time stamps, context. Mark's name sat at the top of the thread like a warning label. The first message was from 2 weeks earlier. Jessica, Dad's been getting difficult. Questions everything. Counts money like it's a hobby. Mark, that's good. Judges love patterns. Start planting concern. Planting. The word sat there, casual, like they were talking about tomatoes. I felt my jaw set. My hands stayed steady. I've learned over the years that rage burns calories you might need later. I kept scrolling. Jessica. I told Gerald at Bridge that Dad snapped at a bank teller, made him sound racist. People shut down fast when they hear that. Mark. Perfect. Social isolation first. Makes guardianship easier. Guardianship. There it was. Not implied. Not inferred. Typed, casual, like a grocery list item. My phone buzzed on the desk. I ignored it. I took screenshots. Every message. Every date. I made sure the battery indicator and clock were visible in each image. Then I saved copies to a flash drive. Labeled it, date, time, counting matters. One thread alone isn't proof. It's context. It's motive. I scrolled further back. Jessica. He keeps all his receipts. It's creepy. Mark. Receipts won't matter if he looks unstable. I almost smiled at that one. Almost. Because receipts always matter. They're the difference between a story and a fact. The last message was from that morning. Jessica. Bridge Club handled. Gerald did the talking. Dad will probably sulk. Mark. Good. If he calls angry, record it. We need him reactive. I stared at that line, longer than the others, because now I understood the next move before it happened. They wanted me loud, emotional, sloppy. They wanted the version of me that would make their story easier. I locked the iPad, powered it down completely. Then I did something very deliberate. I unplugged it. I placed it in a drawer. Then I wrote in my notebook, evidence secured. Next step, corroboration. I didn't confront them. I didn't text Jessica. I didn't forward the screenshots to anyone. People ruin good leverage by using it too early. Instead, I made calls. Not accusations, questions. First call, Susan. Susan loves information the way some people love sugar. She's never met a secret she didn't want to share, especially if it comes with moral authority. She answered on the third ring. Arthur? She said, cautious. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. I have a question. She hesitated. About everything? About who told you what, I said. Specifically. Silence. Then a sigh. Jessica. She ran into me at the grocery store. When? I asked. Last Thursday, she said. By the produce. What did she say? I asked. That you were slipping, Susan said. That you'd used a slur at the bank. That she was embarrassed and scared. Did she say she'd witnessed it? I asked. No, Susan said. She said someone told her. Who? I asked. Susan paused. She said Gerald mentioned it. I closed my eyes briefly. Thank you, I said. One more thing. Yes? Did she text you about it? I asked. Another pause. Then, yes. Can you forward it to me? I asked. Word for word. Susan hesitated. Arthur, I don't want to get involved. I understand, I said. But if I'm sick, I need to know what's being said about me. For my doctor. Doctors shut down arguments. They make people cooperative. Susan exhaled. Okay, I'll send it. 10 seconds later, my phone chimed. I opened the message. From Jessica to Susan. Dad's mind is going. He used the N-word at the bank. I'm ashamed. We have to limit his social exposure to protect his dignity. Protect his dignity. I counted the words. I counted the punctuation. I counted the manipulation. I saved it. Screenshot. Time stamp visible. Then I wrote in my notebook, Gossip path confirmed. Jessica to Susan, to Gerald to Club. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt focused. Next call. Marianne. She answered reluctantly. Yes? She said clipped. Marianne, I said. I won't take much time. I'm documenting something. A pause. Documenting? Yes, I said. Who told you I'd said anything racist? She didn't answer immediately. That's important, I added, because my lawyer is asking. That did it. Jessica, she said quickly. She told me she was scared. Did she give specifics? I asked. She said you yelled at a teller, Marianne said. That people were staring. Did she say where? I asked. The bank, Marianne said. Downtown. Thank you, I said. That's all. I hung up and wrote it down. Then I sat back in my chair and stared at the wall for a full minute. The clock ticked. The heater kicked on. The house made its normal settling noises. My support network, they'd called it. What a neat phrase for people who believed a story without checking. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. On the counter sat my checkbook. Old-fashioned, balanced weakly, pen clipped to the spine. I flipped it open and ran my thumb down the last page. Every deposit, every withdrawal. Exact. I thought of Mark's message. Counts money like it's a hobby. No, I count money like it's evidence. My phone buzzed again. Jessica. This time I answered. Dad, she said breathy, concerned, practiced. Thank God. Are you okay? Yes, I said. Relief flooded her voice. I was so worried. Gerald called and said you caused a scene. I didn't want to believe it. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. No scene, I said. They asked me to leave. Because of the things you've been saying, she replied gently. What things? I asked. A beat. Then, Dad, you don't remember. I let silence stretch. Not confusion. Just space. I don't remember yelling, I said slowly. Did I? Another pause, then a sigh that sounded almost real. Yes, she said. You did. More than once. People are scared. There it was. Confirmation. Recorded. Clear. Who told you? I asked. Gerald, she said without hesitation. Gerald told you? I repeated. Yes, she said. He said you've been bitter. Angry. It's probably the medication. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I see, I said. Dad, she continued, maybe it's time we talk about getting you some help. Just temporary. To protect you. Protect. Such a useful word. My hand tightened on the phone. Not shaking. Just pressure. I'm seeing my doctor today, I said. Oh, she replied too quickly. That's good. And my lawyer, I added. Silence. Then, why would you need a lawyer? To update some paperwork, I said. Another pause. Longer. Dad, she said carefully. Are you upset with me? No, I said. I'm observant. She laughed softly. You always overthink. No, I replied. I always check load-bearing walls. She didn't respond. I'll call you later, I said. Dad. I ended the call. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, and then I opened the call log. I labeled the recording. Date, time, description. Jessica admits telling Gerald I yelled slurs, claims medication. Evidence isn't dramatic. It's boring, and that's why it works. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing unglamorous things. I changed passwords, all of them, bank, email, cloud, utilities. I logged out every device, remotely. Then I drove back to Linda's office and handed her a flash drive. "What's this?" she asked. "Coordination," I said. She plugged it in, scrolled. Her mouth tightened. "This is good," she said. "Very good." "Good enough?" I asked. "For what?" she replied. I thought for a moment. "For when I walk back into that bridge room," I said. Linda looked at me. Really looked at me. "You planning a confrontation?" she asked. "I'm planning a correction," I said. She nodded slowly. "Public?" "Yes," I said. "Then don't do it angry," she said. "Do it clean." I stood. That's the only way I know. That night I sat at my desk and organized everything. Screenshots labeled, printed copies stacked, doctor's letter clipped to the front. I stapled nothing. Staples make documents look defensive, paper clips only. My phone buzzed once more around 9. Jessica again. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my calendar. Regional bridge tournament. 2 weeks out. Same community center. Larger crowd. Outsiders. Board members. A microphone. A projector. An AV system I'd personally helped fund 10 years ago. I circled the date. Wrote one word next to it. Restore? Then I closed the notebook. Outside, rain started tapping against the windows. Soft at first, then steadier. I turned off the lights and sat in the dark for a while, listening. Not plotting, not fantasizing, just waiting. Because concrete takes time to set, and lies crack all on their own if you don't rush them. The waiting is the hardest part for people who don't understand leverage. For me, it was just process. I didn't speak to Jessica for 11 days. I know because I counted them. She tried 5 times. Calls, texts, voicemails that started concerned and ended irritated. The messages followed a pattern. Day 1. Dad, please call me. I'm worried. Day 3. People are asking questions. You're making this worse. Day 6. You're being stubborn. This isn't healthy. Day 9. We need to talk before you embarrass yourself. Embarrass yourself. That word showed up a lot when someone else was afraid. I didn't reply. Instead, I prepared. I went back to the doctor for the full neuropsych evaluation. 3 hours. Memory tests, pattern recognition, problem solving. I passed everything. Not perfect. Nobody my age does, but solid, consistent, documented. The report was 12 pages long, dense, clinical, unemotional, exactly what I needed. I took it straight to Linda. She made copies, notarized what needed notarizing. "Arthur," she said, "if she tries for emergency guardianship now, she'll lose." "Good," I replied. "I want her to know that." "Through lawyers," Linda said. "Not theatrics." I shook my head. "Through witnesses." She didn't argue. That week I also did something else. I went to the bank, not to make a scene, to create a record. I spoke to the branch manager, polite, calm, explained that a false allegation had been made about my behavior. He pulled security footage, reviewed it with me. Tuesday, noon, teller window 3. There I was, sitting, signing a withdrawal slip, saying thank you, leaving. No raised voice, no scene, no anything. He printed a still frame, time stamp in the corner. I asked him to write a statement. He did. Banks like paperwork more than people. He understood. I added it to the folder. Then I went to the post office, spoke to the supervisor, asked if any complaints had been filed against me. She checked. Nothing. She laughed softly. "You're one of our nicest customers," she said. "You always bring exact change." I smiled. "Old habits." She wrote a note, signed it. Folder got thicker. Every errand felt like adding rebar. By the time the tournament weekend arrived, my folder weighed more than a hardcover book. On Saturday morning, I dressed carefully. Gray suit, pressed, not flashy. Clean shoes, no tie, open collar. I shaved, slow, careful, no cuts. I wanted nothing that could be described as disheveled. On the kitchen counter sat my phone, fully charged, voice recorder app open. I checked it once, twice. Then I picked up the folder. Paper clips held everything in order. Doctor's report on top, texts behind it, screenshots, statements, timeline. I didn't rush. At the community center, the parking lot was full. Cars lined the street. People in good jackets and sensible shoes moved toward the entrance. I walked in. The noise hit first. Laughter, shuffling cards, the low hum of competition. And then I saw her. Jessica stood near the registration table, clipboard in hand, smiling, volunteering, performing concern. She saw me and froze, just for a second. Then she recovered and rushed over. "Dad," she said too loud. "What are you doing here?" I didn't stop walking. She grabbed my arm lightly, too lightly to be forceful, just enough to signal ownership. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Let's get you home." I turned to face her. Up close, I could see the strain behind her smile, the tension around her eyes. "Unhand me," I said quietly. She laughed, like I'd made a joke. "Dad." "Now," I said. She dropped her hand. People were watching. Good. I stepped past her and walked straight to the scoring table. Behind it sat the AV setup, projector, microphone, cables, same system I'd helped install, same remote. I picked up the microphone. A couple of heads turned, then more. The room quieted in waves. Jessica hurried after me. "Dad, please." I raised the microphone slightly. Yeah, not dramatic. Just enough. "Before I leave," I said into it, my voice steady, "I'd like to play one hand." Murmurs rippled through the room. Gerald stood near the back. His face went pale when he saw the folder in my hand. "I won't take long," I continued, "but I need to correct a record." Jessica shook her head. "This isn't appropriate," she whispered fiercely. I ignored her. I opened the folder. 2 weeks ago," I said, "I was removed from this club based on an accusation." I held up the doctor's report. "This is a neuropsychological evaluation performed voluntarily. No cognitive impairment." I placed it on the table, projected the first page. The room leaned forward. Jessica's mouth opened, closed. Next page. "This," I said, "is a message my daughter sent to Susan." I read it, word for word, including the slur accusation. Gasps. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Jessica stepped back like the floor had shifted. "And this," I said, clicking to the next slide, "is a message my daughter sent to her husband." The words filled the screen. "If the Bridge Club bans him, he loses his support network. Judge will see instability." Silence dropped like a curtain. Gerald stared at the screen, then at Jessica. "That wasn't," she started. I raised my hand, not to silence her, to slow the room. "I have more," I said. I showed the bank statement, the time-stamped photo, the post office note, the call log. I didn't insult her. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid out the facts like a bridge blueprint. When I finished, I closed the folder. "I am not senile," I said. "I am not a bigot, and I will not be managed." I looked at Gerald. "I expect my chair back Tuesday," I said. "North. Same as always." I set the microphone down. Jessica stood there, pale, shaking, surrounded by people who suddenly didn't want to meet her eyes. I walked past her, out the door, into the cold air. Behind me, the room stayed silent. That was justice. Clean, documented, irreversible. And I didn't look back. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It never does. It happened in increments, in pauses, in people choosing where to stand. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already vibrating in my pocket. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. I knew the order. First would be Jessica, then Mark, then people who wanted to be neutral. Neutral is what cowards call themselves when the math gets uncomfortable. I drove home slow, not because I was rattled, because I wasn't in a hurry anymore. At a red light, I finally checked the phone. 9 missed calls, 6 from Jessica, 2 from Mark, 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I declined nothing. I accepted nothing. I just drove. At home, I placed the folder on my desk and sat down. The house was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The heater clicked on and off. I poured a glass of water and drank it in 3 steady swallows. Then I sat and waited. The first voicemail came through while I was still sitting there. Jessica's voice. No breathy concern this time. Tight, strained. "Dad, you had no right. You humiliated me. You embarrassed the family." The family. Interesting how quickly the definition changes. Second voicemail. Mark. "Arthur, this got out of hand. You misunderstood. We were just trying to help. Call me." Help. Third voicemail. Jessica again. "You blindsided me. Everyone thinks I'm a monster now." I didn't delete them, I saved them. Counting matters. I made dinner. Simple. Eggs, toast. Butter scraped thin because I don't waste it. While I ate, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. "This is Gerald. I'm so sorry. We believed her. I should have checked." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed, "I'll see you Tuesday." Nothing else. After dinner, I changed the locks. Not dramatically, just methodically. Front door, back door, garage, new keys, old ones into a drawer labeled retired. That night, I slept 6 straight hours. No dreams, no replaying scenes, just rest. The next morning, I drove to Linda's office again. She didn't look surprised when I walked in. "Already heard," she said. "Someone from the club called my office asking what guardianship fraud means." "Good," I said. She gestured for me to sit. "We should formalize the next step." I nodded. "Disinheritance." Linda didn't flinch. "Partial or full?" "Full," I said. "But set up a trust for the kids. Locked. Age 25. Educational use only." She wrote as I spoke. "Any contact with your daughter going forward?" she asked. "None," I said. "Unless required by law." Linda paused. "Arthur, you're aware this is permanent?" "Yes," I said. "So is betrayal." She slid the documents across the desk. "Sign here." I signed, initialed, dated. When I left her office, my phone buzzed again. Jessica. I let it ring. It rang longer this time. Desperate. Then it stopped. I didn't block her number. I wanted her to know I was choosing silence. Over the next week, the town did what towns do. People picked sides, then pretended they hadn't. At the grocery store, Susan avoided my aisle entirely. Marianne smiled too brightly. Gerald shook my hand like it was something fragile. I accepted apologies without warmth. Apologies don't rebuild trust. They just acknowledge damage. On Tuesday, I returned to the bridge club. The room was quieter than usual, respectful, careful. My chair waited at North. I sat. Cards were shuffled. The familiar snap of cardstock filled the air. Gerald cleared his throat. "Arthur." "Deal," I said. He did. We played. No speeches. No jokes. Just cards. Afterward, I went home, sat on my back deck, and shuffled a fresh deck. The air smelled like rain on warm pavement. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and stopped. My phone buzzed. Jessica. I watched it light up. Watched it ring, then stop. I placed the phone face down on the table. The locks were changed. The will was signed. The table was mine again. You can't choose the hand you're dealt, but you absolutely choose who gets to sit across from you.